Maximum news. Yeah, we're back. Sorry, there wasn't an episode last week in case you didn't catch it. I was on vacation. I am back now. We are back to a regular weekly schedule. There shouldn't be any interruptions for the foreseeable future. I'm Max. That's Saib. Let's get right into the news. We got 5 stories lined up for you today. First off, there's a little MMO that just released recently called New World. We've been talking about it quite a bit. It's been mostly Saib's thing. I'm going to let him take the lead on this. Saib, apparently, you've been playing it, and apparently it's been doing gangbusters in terms of sales. Why don't you tell us about that and your impression?
Yeah, so I haven't played it nearly as much as I want to play it. This is one of these things where it's like, MMOs take up a lot of time, so you got to be kind of like cognizant of that. But I feel that this game is fairly casual friendly. There's not a whole lot to do at the end of the game, so by all means, people, take your time, enjoy the game, meet people, do things together, form friendships. That's what's going to make this game a memorable experience for you. Outside of that, it is a very cool, very fun mix between a world that you can gather stuff and craft and do all kinds of building and stuff like that. Not to a great extent, but to a small extent. It's not Rust. It's not Fallout 76. It's not that level of building and interaction. It definitely has the capability of doing that, but they haven't really opened those doors yet. And it's a very fun, very Skyrim-ish style combat system. So it's definitely fun and it's very light. There's not a massive amount of complexity. There is definitely like some really interesting things that you can do with some of the weapons. You can do animation canceling for various types of like chaining certain attacks that, most people wouldn't necessarily think about. So there is a skill ceiling to the game that is not immediately like visible to most people, but you can get really, really good with the game, and that skill can be showcased quite significantly in PvP combat. So there is some cool stuff to be had there. There is a fair amount of PvE content. There's dungeons and some endgame content that's there. These things are not the end-all be-all of any MMO. I would say for most MMOs, it's extraordinarily light, but I think this gives them an actual advantage. And the advantage that gives them is that they've created a world in which you can pop in, have a lot of fun with friends, and basically be prepared for future content. And I think that's good, because then they can start to tailor the content that they create for the game to the players that are playing. And if they're smart, they will do that. They will see what people are interested in. They'll see what they're wanting to do. They'll see how to try and fix the faction systems. And if they're smart, they will find clever and unique ways to do those kinds of things. So
there's benefits to starting with an MMO in the early days of its actual release, because pretty much everybody that is going to play it is starting off on an equal footing, in contrast to something like World of Warcraft or the Old Republic or Final Fantasy XIV, where you have to grind for hundreds and hundreds of hours just to be able to get to the pinnacle of the types of people that are playing it. You can just start here, and it's still relatively, like you said, casual, and it's not a stressor. So you can just hop in, check it out, see if it's for you.
And I really do encourage people to take this casually. Like, if you push through, get to end cap game, max out your stuff by end of next week, you will have nothing to do for a very long time. And I think that this game is designed in such a way that you don't have to rush. I think you can just casually play with friends. You can very easily play with friends that are 5 levels higher to like, all the way down to like new levels, and you're still gaining stuff. You're still growing your skills. You're still improving your crafting, that kind of stuff. So again, very interesting game. Not necessarily for everybody. Not necessarily for those hardcore players out there. Not necessarily for people who are skeptical of this kind of thing yet. If you want to give it time, give it time. Don't feel rushed. This is a massive company. It's not like they're going to go bankrupt tomorrow. I don't think Amazon's going bankrupt anytime soon. And you may have qualms about how Amazon does its business, and all of those things are things that they're there for you to consider. So I'm not shilling for Amazon. They don't need it whatsoever. I'm shilling for an experience with your friends, and I think that it's cheap enough that it does warrant taking a peek at. It's only about, depending where you are, it's only about $40. Very cheap, no subscription model, and as of yet, no pay to win microtransactions, just cosmetics. The minute that they add in pay to win, a business model that does like, hey, this potion increases your experience with weapons for 5 hours and it costs $20. The minute that they start doing that, I will trash this game.
Yep.
We're going to talk about Genshin Impact, and I have some very harsh words for them later on. But right now, there are 800,000 people that were playing this game less than a few hours ago. 800,000. Wow. That's concurrent. That's how many users they had. That's how many users they had playing at the same time just a few hours ago.
So it's well above the million.
Sorry?
It's well above the million mark in terms of total people.
Most likely, yes. Oh, yes. I haven't, both me and Moon have not been able to play now for the last 24 hours because we've been working, and that isn't counted in there, and that's 2 subscriptions right there. So there is a significant amount of people playing this game right now. And I gotta say, a lot of people said, the content seems really light. And again, if you don't like that kind of thing, just don't buy it yet, don't get into it yet. Put it on your wish list, wait for it to either pop in on a sale. I'm sure there'll be at least $5 off here on Cyber Monday coming up here in a couple of weeks. It's about to me, the game will be out long enough that they'll want to reinvigorate new players, and that's at that time, when they offer some kind of a discount, maybe it'll be a 2-for-1 special or something like that. That would be a really smart thing because a lot of people might bring in some friends. But yeah, basically that's it. It's doing well. It's doing a whole lot better than they expected. They did a server reset while maintaining people's online position. So Good. They were able to shut the servers down for 15 minutes, bring them back up, and you didn't get, kicked to the curb and had to relog in. You basically were just hold, and you're back. That's amazing. They've obviously really started to, advance server technology, and I think that's great. I'm playing on an East server right now, even though I'm nowhere near the Eastern United States, and I'm playing with people in England and in Europe that are playing on that US East server, and they're having a fine time. That's amazing to me. Okay. That is wow. They have really nailed down that server lag and those server issues. So again, very excited to see this. Very, very looking forward to seeing the advancements that come out of this, because it's about time somebody started to push MMOs into a new era. I don't think gameplay-wise this has very much to offer, but I think technically, on a technical level, as far as servers go, this really does have a lot to offer. Now, that's not things that you typically see a lot of, but it's definitely opening the door to that. So hopefully storytelling, gameplay, and mechanics and content and systems will come in after the fact, and they will bring them in slowly one by one, creating more and more new content for you to do over the next couple of months. So that's my wish. Again, I'm not shilling for them. I think that it's kind of a cool thing. Might be your cup of tea, might not be your cup of tea. Give it a try if you're interested, and if you are, you can find me and my me and my friends. We're currently playing on Castle of Steel. So if you're interested, hop in on Castle of Steel and then join our Discord, and we'll have some fun.
Sib, I'm gonna buy this game. I think you just sold me on it, and I think I will set aside an hour or two
for you?
in the next.
Oh
no,
I don't think I meant to.
Well, you don't have to worry about that, dude. I appreciate it. But yeah, basically what you just said there about, it's still early days, it's relatively casual, and it's cheap, and there's no pay to win yet. Might as well give it a shot, because some of the best time I've ever had gaming was playing an MMO. That was World of Warcraft, and that was back closer to when it originally
Mhm.
came out. So might as well give it a try. I'll see you there, man. So let's move on to the next story here. In terms of advancing the games industry forward, I think that was a pretty decent segue. There are a bunch of companies that are looking into getting into game streaming, and one of those is obviously Netflix. We've been hearing about this for a while, that Netflix wants to get into the gaming world and not just be focusing on movies and TV. We haven't been really entirely sure how they were going to go into that for the longest time, but it looks like they're actually making concrete strides right now. You sent me the story, Saib, about Netflix buying a company called Night School. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so this is Netflix doing what it said it was going to do. That they're that they're confident that they can do game streaming and tied into their Netflix service. So you will be able to pick up a Netflix controller or use a custom controller and start playing start playing games on their streaming service. And the first one that is officially out is Night School. So yeah, Night School is officially their first studio acquisition, and they're going to start making their games available to this service. I don't know how they're going to do this. I don't know if they're going to go out of their way and buy up dozens more IPs or do the Epic thing and start taking as many releases on upcoming releases into their system as possible. I don't know if they're going to fail miserably like Google did. This is all really up in the air, and yeah, this is very, very interesting. Night School, if you weren't aware, they made an award-winning game in 2016 called Oxenfree. So I personally never played it, but interesting, I guess.
Yeah. They're coming out with a prequel in a few years called Ollie Ollie. Sorry. It's interesting. Netflix is sort of in a unique situation compared to companies like Google or Amazon, where if Google and Amazon took a hit in regards to their advances into gaming, it'll be like a mosquito bite on their overall body, right? They won't really feel it. Whereas with Netflix, they've constantly been running a deficit when it comes to acquiring content and putting it on their service. If they fail at trying to get game streaming up and running on their platform, it will do a lot more damage than it would for those other two companies. And they'll have to do a lot more than just acquiring these indie developers. Even though they are important, they will need to partner up with bigger studios in order to make their platform a little bit more attractive. Maybe encourage people who already have a Netflix subscription to pay a little bit more money in order to get those gaming subscriptions. So yeah, I'm not really sure what to make of it just yet. We're still in early days. We have to wait until more information comes out before we can decide whether or not they're making the right decisions overall. So that's a little bit of a short story, but it's an interesting one. We'll see what more Netflix does and whether or not they kind of screw the pooch like Amazon did in early days, but maybe they'll get around to doing things right like Amazon is doing with
there are some rumors.
Yep.
Just quickly, just tying this into Stadia. There are some rumors going around that Google lost upwards of about 2 to 3 billion on Stadia. Now, again, that's rumors. They obviously haven't come out and printed out how much exactly they lost, and it would be kind of difficult because they did sell a lot of units, but did that cover the cost of creating those things or creating the infrastructure to do so? How much did they spend on the infrastructure, and then how much of that is actually something that they were able to use in other things versus cutting it out? They certainly basically lost almost all of the money that they spent on developing all the games that they had and buying out the games showing up there that they did. So, yeah.
People bought the hardware, and then when they realized, if they didn't live in a urban hub like New York or something, that the hardware didn't work as advertised, they stopped using it. Yeah, apparently Google doesn't understand that unless you live in those heavy heavily populated urban centers like Silicon Valley or California or New York or Toronto, I guess, here in Canada, that 4K 60 FPS just isn't going to happen. And that was one of the main selling points. And now it's going the way of the Google Glass, I think it was called. Oh, well, you live and you learn. Well, maybe not in terms of Google, but we'll see. Let's move on to this next story. I'm going to sort of lead the way on this because it directly impacts some of my all-time favorite franchises. So, Saib, Bluepoint, we like Bluepoint. They're a studio that is responsible for making the Shadow of the Colossus remaster/remake that came out in 2018. Gorgeous game. I played it a lot. And they also were responsible for releasing Demon's Souls on the PS5, the remake of that, which is also great. I absolutely loved that remake. Well, it looks like Sony has acquired the studio and are going to be developing games exclusively for Sony. Now, we already knew this was going to happen because there was a tweet that came out from PlayStation's official Twitter account a few months ago that wasn't supposed to be released. I guess the details weren't finalized, but they were expecting it to be, and somebody just tweeted it out early, but then they took it down. Anyways, it is now officially official, and this information comes to us via IGN. They did an interview with Bluepoint and Sony. But there's some interesting tidbits to this article that are sort of both intriguing and confusing to me. And I'm sure it will be to a whole lot of other people that are fans of Bluepoint's work. According to this article, moving forward, Bluepoint is going to be making original content and not more remasters and remakes. And this is strange because Bluepoint, their entire identity is built around taking previously existing games and updating them visually and in terms of their audio. Apparently, it was always Bluepoint's plan to move beyond doing this. They just didn't have the team or the financial backing to do it. However, they are confident that they will be able to make original content because everybody that works at Bluepoint, according to the guy that they're interviewing over at IGN, has 15 plus years of experience in the industry and would be more than capable of producing something original. Now, I'm all for original content coming from this company. I think these guys are great. Based on everything that I've heard from people who have worked with them, they're absolute G's, and I wish them the best. But this contradicts a very prominent rumor that has been circling around the internet regarding Bluepoint. People were expecting that the next project that Bluepoint was going to be announcing was a Metal Gear Solid remake. Well, if this report is true, that wouldn't be the case. And moreover, there's another report that came out today that further solidifies that rumor wasn't true. According to Video Games Chronicle, the story came out today at the time of this recording, Konami, #FKonami, is going to be reviving Castlevania, Silent Hill, and Metal Gear Solid in various ways. I'll go into the details in a second. I'm 99.9% sure that this is true in regards to Silent Hill at the very least, because we've been hearing rumors that the Silent Hill franchise was not only going to be getting a new game, but that it was going to be getting multiple games, and that one of those games was going to be produced by the Polish horror studio Bloober team, who made Layers of Fear, Observer, Blair Witch, and The Medium. I'd be willing to put down pretty good money that they are working on a Silent Hill game based on all the information that has come out. Now, as for how Metal Gear Solid will be revived, according to this article from Video Games Chronicle, the Metal Gear Solid games, the old games, are all getting remasters, which is weird because what will they do? Will they just take the remasters that came out in 2011 for 2, 3, and Peace Walker, and maybe 4 and 5, and just make them 4K capable? I mean, I'd be down, but like just being able to have access to versions of the game that I can play without having to put in a whole lot of effort to do so. But I just hope it's not as bare bones as that. I hope they'll do a little bit more to update them. And also, most important detail here is that apparently we will be getting a remake of a Metal Gear Solid game, but it's not going to be the first one, and it's not being made by Bluepoint. The game that will be getting remade is Metal Gear Solid 3, Snake Eater, and it will be handled by a studio in Singapore known as Virtuos. They were the ones, like, in case you guys are asking, who the heck is Virtuos? They are known for, well, most known for working on the Switch port for Dark Souls Remastered. Right. So definitely a step down from Bluepoint. But hey, if they can sort of like take the Fox engine and then use that to update Metal Gear Solid 3, I think they'd be able to pull it off. Just with the type of studio that Virtuos is. So, Side, I know how you feel about Sony, but a bunch of people here probably don't. Why don't you tell people how you feel about Bluepoint being acquired by Sony, and also how this contradicts the Metal Gear Solid rumors?
Well, so I don't like the way that Sony has been treating developers or their customers recently. This is no secret. I find their business practices have been absolutely horrendous. Some people are like, yeah, I still like it, and memories and all that kind of stuff. And I don't fault them, because they should have the ability and the right to, appreciate and like a thing that they've been with for a very long time. I've actually been with a Sony phone for the last 8 years. So, I find certain aspects of their company to be fine. But in the last 3-4 years, it started out really lightly, and it has progressively gotten worse and worse and worse and worse. They have treated some of these developers in ways that I can't go into in a short amount of time, but it's been horrendous, absolutely horrendous. They have been treating them like garbage. And this is something that I feel is very rude and terrible for the gaming industry, because we already have enough problems with developers and them not getting paid enough, them not being treated with respect, them being, openly assaulted in some cases. Blizzard, Activision. There is just a lot of issues that they have to go through, and being treated like garbage is not something that I think should be allowed. So that being said, how's this merger going to work, and how is it going to function? For the most part, it's going to be fine. They want to make good titles, and this company has done really good jobs with previous titles. Now they say they're working on an original project. I find that this is the case. When you're running a company that makes remakes, you can only do remakes for so long before your team is creatively bursting at the seams, and they want to create their own thing and not be a second voice on a thing that's ignored. And so they really desperately want the ability to stretch their own wings. I don't know what this means for these rumors. I really don't. For a while, we've been hearing about this Metal Gear Solid stuff, and and a remake coming for that, or new directions for that. With that, I'll believe it when I see it. As far as it actually ending up in the hands of players, we got to remember that Sony is the master of, hey, announcing this cool thing that we're going to do soon. 5 years later, you're looking at it. In some cases, 8 years later. This isn't to be said that these are it's not the rare occurrence where it's hey, here's a trailer for a thing, for a concept, and we're hiring for this concept. We've seen stuff like that, and people tend to forget that that kind of a thing, it's kind of shouted out to create and draw talent to the project. With Sony, that's just their normal marketing thing. How many games got showcased about 4 to 5 years ago that we're still waiting for release? How many times recently have they promised a game or shown off a game, and then 4 to 5 years later it comes out? That's kind of Bayonetta, Final Fantasy, Last Guardian. What's that other one that everybody has been waiting for forever with the monkey? You play the monkey guy. Beyond Good and Evil 2. Another great example. These games have been promised for coming up near a decade now. This is ridiculous. So when it comes to the promises of Sony and the promises of Sony titles that are exclusively on Sony, there's a lot to be, not get too excited on as far as like immediate release goes. Like, oh, cool, that's a really cool trailer. Guess I'll, enjoy that for the next 5 to 6 years, and that's fine because, that's them and that's what they do. At least you can look forward to, sharing a new cool video game that's, that you're gonna be able to share with your newborn in like, by the time they can get into gaming at 8 or 9. So that's cool. I know I'm being a little facetious, but still. So that's the thing. As far as this goes, I think they are going to be working on their own title. And then as far as how that's going to affect all these other remasters, I don't know. We'll wait and see. That's my word on that, because I don't want people to get overly hyped, because we've seen where that's gone and it's not been in good places. So
yeah, abandon anybody. Yeah, when it comes to Bluepoint, even though I'll be disappointed if they're not working on a Metal Gear Solid remake, because if anybody's going to handle it, I would want them to handle it, because they've churned out nothing but the utmost quality. I will be more than supportive of them going forward, because the people that work there, I like them all. They all seem to be really experienced and do a whole lot of good work. And I'd be really, really curious to see what they can offer us in terms of original content. At least we can be certain of one thing, that when that original content comes out, damn, it's going to look good. All right, let's move on to Genshin Impact. Side, what's the deal with this?
So Genshin Impact has made $2 billion. Yeah,
What?
with a B. $2 billion in the last 12 months.
And it's only been out for a year, right?
Yeah, this released about a year ago, and $2 billion franchise.
What is it about? Okay, what is it about the game that it was able to get that much within such a short period of time? Is it the anime waifus?
It's the anime, of course. It's the waifus and the husbandos and the super cute characters. Klee is so adorable. Oh my goodness, these characters are absolutely brilliantly made. And one of the best things that they did is that they localized so much of the voice really well. There's some really terrible characters with it's mostly the guys. There's one character I'm like, I got him and I heard his voice once and I'm like, I am never playing this character ever. He really annoys me. And you've got the ability to switch to the Chinese and Japanese voiceover stuff, and yeah, so the game is cool. It has a ton of support in the form of like they do these like little YouTube videos where it's just like two talking heads, where they talk about cool stuff. Their animations are top notch as far as like combat goes. Their video animations, especially for Honkai Impact, which they have the same team that works on this kind of stuff. Those things are spectacular. And that's what's led them to making so much money, because there's so many people who are playing these games that are like, I want to max out this one character. What's it going to cost me? Like $5,000. Okay, that's fine. Right? And for some people that is fine. I know people who every year they spend $5,000 on their quads or more, and they buy them like crazy. I know people who pour $30-$40 into coffee every day. It's like, yeah, there's some people that have some extremely deep pockets in which they can use to fund bad habits. Now that said, I would say that, in all honesty, if they only sold characters as a one-time purchase and you unlock them fully through a one-time purchase of, say this character comes out and it's $20. Now that's a lot, because there's a lot of characters. But at the same time, if you're only interested in playing with a team of 4 or 8 is all really what you need. And you do get several top tier champions that you can play really, really well for free. And you do, if you do the daily events and stuff like that, you can get enough to like purchase some stuff. I did spend, I spent some money on the game when it first came out, and I got a couple of lucky pulls, and although I'm not convinced that they're lucky, I'm convinced that most everybody gets enough to like keep them interested. You do get like a high return rate on your packages in comparison to other games. In other games, EA, when you're playing their gacha systems, this funny thing happened with EA a couple of years ago where they gave collectively, I think they gave like $2 million to a ton of streamers to pour into opening packs. And out of that $2 million, you know how many of the top 3 cards that these couple hundred streamers pulled? 0. None of those streamers that opened $2 million, not individually, collectively, opened $2 million of packs. None of them got the top. I think it was a top 4, but I know for sure it was a top 3. Not one single top 3 pull. Now, in this game, I got one of the top pulls almost immediately on like a $20 purchase. And I was like, cool, great. Spend a little more than I should have. But then I said, you know what? I'm done spending money, and I have not spent a dime since the first like month or whatever. So I haven't spent money. Haven't spent a dime on the game for over 11 months. To be honest, I can't anymore because I don't have I closed down the payment system that I was using for it, so I can't actually actively buy anything, which is, by the way, a really good way if you want to curb your spending on games. Just close down your credit cards and your online purchase accounts. You'll find that you start to save a lot of money really quickly. But yeah, I haven't spent a dime on it, and I have continually, like, I don't play the game religiously. I play the game once for about a week straight. Once every 4 to 5 months it's been. So I've literally taken a significant break on it recently. I haven't even played it in the last 3 months. Now, when the last time I hopped in, I managed to do a couple events. I got like, here's enough to do 2 10 pulls. I did 2 10 pulls. I got 2 legendaries. I was like, good Lord. Okay. Right. I think they actively do that to try and keep you around in the game. But that said, I honestly think 100% here, if they dropped this stuff, made the characters one-time purchases, and then sold cosmetics only, I really think 100% that this game would be the top game in the world right now.
I would be more than willing to try it if they did that. But because they added this crap,
because of the gacha system, I have not spent as much time in the game as I would personally like to if I haven't had an infinite amount of time to play video games every day. I simply look at the game, I look at the gacha system, I roll my eyes, and I don't want to play. That is how I react to this game, because the gacha system, I know how slimy and mucky it is. I know how bad it is for kids, and I really dislike it. I really, really dislike it, and it sours the taste for the rest of the game. I really like the Honkai Impact story, and I've been following that game for some time now, as far as like the official animations and the story. And I'll read up on the wiki and I'll be like, oh, this is so cool. It's so cool. Have I installed and played the game? Not once. Why? Because I don't like the gacha system. It just stinks. It's gross. It's icky. You're not only, and in that game it's worse because you're buying the same characters just with different like abilities and skins. Essentially, you're just rolling on them over and over and over again. So there's some people that are literally dumping like thousands of dollars into it every single like major patch, and I find that stuff terrible. I really do. I really don't think money should affect gameplay and access to power and characters in a game that much. I really don't think they should. And yeah, it's just terrible, and it hampers and it hamstrings the game as far as like being a great game. I would love to talk about Genshin Impact with more people. I would love to make more videos on it, but I can't and I won't because of the gacha system, because it is so predatory and it's so bad and there's no protection on it. Like, there's no like, hey, we've realized that this person's spending $43,000 on this game. Maybe we should stop it. Maybe we should not allow them to do that. No, they're okay with that, and because they're okay with that, I have such a hard time with this game. And yeah, probably means that they might not have made $2 billion on it. But I honestly think that you can only do so much with so much money. Like, I really don't know. Like, are these guys? What are these guys going to do with $2 billion? Like, are they gonna fund 5 new AAA games for the next for the next 10 years? I kind of
Are they going to be like Valve and
yeah.
Rockstar, where they just sit on it forever?
Yeah,
And do
and
nothing?
and suddenly just people don't, they're not working as hard as they could or they were or whatever. They've got their money, they're happy, and then their creativity stagnates. How much is that going to affect things? Is that going to change what we see from them? There's a good chance of it.
Yeah.
So
It's too bad, man.
again, yeah.
Because people have been
No,
go ahead.
I just really think this game, it's got such good storytelling, and unfortunately it's absolutely ruined by essentially greed.
Yeah.
And it's terrible.
I've heard a lot of people tell me in my comment sections, especially anytime I bring up the Gnostic religion and its relation to video games. God, Max, you had to play Genshin Impact. Every time you talk about Gnosticism or the Demiurge, you just got me thinking about that game. And it's like, dude, I would love to play it. I hear it has an amazing story. The thing is, I don't have hundreds of hours in the day and tons of money in my pocket to spend on that game just to be able to experience the story. Why would I do that when I can go back?
I would say that if you lock yourself out from being able to buy stuff in the game, I will say that you can play the game. You can finish the game with just the free stuff they give you. You will not be hamstrung at any part of the actual gameplay, because one of the strongest characters in the game is a free character, and she's also one of the most popular characters in the game. Actually, there's more than one of them, and you're not hamstrung that much, and it's also not a huge time investment. The game is actually designed for you to basically play for about an hour to 2 hours a day and then be done with it. You can do more stuff, like you can explore and explore and explore and explore, but it's like, if you're caught up on content and you've been following the thing and you've completed all the stories and that, there's only about an hour to 2 hours of content tops a day for you to play, outside of events and stuff like that, where there's more to do, because there is an energy system. And again, if you're not spending money, your energy system is basically just giving you that opportunity to play the game and have fun-ish, I guess. But yeah, again, that's if you can toggle that. And unfortunately, unless you have a significant other where you're like, hey, I need you to toggle my ability to spend money on this game, turn it off, and then put in a password, and then don't tell me the password no matter what I say. It's like, is some people, they have to do that. And unfortunately, that's actually kind of hard to do in the game. So, because there's no toggle in the game to do that. You have to go to your settings within your Google account or whatever, or your iPhone account or whatever, and you literally have to turn it off there. And then you have to create a password and then tell somebody else a password. And then of course, if you actually need to download something that actually, legitimately you need to buy on Google Apps, you can't do it because you created a password that you can't use. So yeah, messy, dirty, unfortunate, because it's such a good game. It is such a good game. It is so amazing. The storytelling is amazing. And unfortunately, it's marred by the gacha system, which it affects me. I have spent too much money on video games. I haven't gone crazy, but when I was at the height of my worst time in my life, I did spend $2,000 on a video game. And I realized then that I had a problem and that I needed to avoid doing this. Since then, I've only done that. I've only gotten close to that once again. And that was again at a time where I was really struggling. So yeah, stuff like that. Don't do it. And please, as developers, please stop doing that, because it's like, if you can just turn it into a buy system, just let us buy what we want, and you will still The difference would have been they would probably have made about 1.8 billion, I think. Honestly, if I'm being honest, I really think they would have made about 1.8 billion because more people would have been playing it. I would have played it. I would have encouraged tons of other people to play it. I would have created a guild where we played content, and probably everyone like, hey, look at this cool new character. I'm buying the costumes and the character unlocks for this. But then again, I don't know. Maybe that's not true. I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, I think for the time being, I'm just going to stay away from something where, or stay with stuff that doesn't really demand money of me, because I have an addictive personality. And by the way, I just bought New World, so maybe I can dedicate the time that I do have to that. Let's move on to the final story. This will just be a quick one. It's just validating a report that we did a couple weeks ago on China and their evolving business. Are you tapping on something? Oh, it's okay, man. Yeah, just talk about something that we talked about 2 weeks ago, and just we got more validation. See, a couple weeks ago, we reported on something that was tweeted out by CNBC correspondent and was also posted on a random Facebook page regarding what types of games China was going to start importing into their country, because as we know, China has been updating their policy in regards to
not whether. Well, so it is importing, but it's also like what is allowed to be made within the country as well. So it's not. Yeah,
that too. Yeah. Okay. So we were just having trouble trying to figure out, like we were trying to figure this out before we recorded that week, whether or not the stuff was true, because there was a whole bunch of really crazy stuff on there. And I mean, like, even for a communist country like China, we had a hard time, well, I had a hard time believing that it was real. Well, according to a South China Morning report, some of that stuff appears to be true. There's an internal training memo going around China's state-backed gaming association, you know, because they're communists, they love trying to control everything, regarding what games can be imported or developed within the country. A summary from gamesindustry.biz tells us the following. 1. Video games aren't pure entertainment. Well, I mean, just as a general statement, I actually kind of agree with that. I think they're also art, and they can be like commentary on society.
And it is the fact that they are art that this is not going to work. 10, 20 years from now, one of the two, at some point in the future, China will regret doing this. These people will regret doing this. Just like the hyper controlling people in Japan who were like, we're going to squash anything sexual. We're going to crush any expression of art that we don't agree with. A bunch of people sat around, moral busybodies, and said, well, we can't have somebody, and of course I know this isn't the right accent, but you know, we can't have somebody creating nasty art. That's not allowed. We're going to put a hammer down on it, and we're going to cancel anybody who tries. Now that's what they said back then, and now adult content in artistic form is like 5% of their entire GDP. And anytime you have an industry that's 5% of your GDP, you don't screw with it, because if you try to cut out that 5%, you'll cut out all of the things that are affected by that. So pulling out something that's like 5 to 10% of your economy, you're going to end up pulling out at least double that at the very least. If it doesn't create a domino effect that then crushes your entire economy. It's laughable now that the people who were sitting around saying, let's make all these stringent rules that will never allow people to create art that's in this way. They are now looking at the country being known to create some of the most, I don't know the word, some of the most interesting content that the world has ever come up with. Like, this is going to bite them in the butt at some point in the future. It's definitely not going to be tomorrow. Isn't going to be next week. But it is going to be some point in the future. People will rise up and crush this, or they will find ways around it, or it will lead to a movement that ultimately ends up ousting these people from power. You do not mess with human creativity. because you will either crush it, demoralize it, and in doing so, destroy your own society. And creativity is what you think. If you don't have creativity, you don't have innovation. If you don't have innovation, you don't have invention. If you don't have invention, you don't have the ability to stay ahead in the marketplace of ideas. If you don't have,
you don't evolve.
Right, perfect. If you don't have any of that stuff, you flounder, and then you hit the wall at a very high speed. And there's been lots of cultures that have tried to do this, and none of them are around these days because of this. Well, not none of them, but pretty close. It's like if you do this, you end up stagnating yourself to the point where you're irrelevant, and you typically look like a dust bowl. So
yeah, the only reason why China has been able to stay around for as long as they have while maintaining communism is because they have adopted some Western market economics.
Well, especially with Hong Kong. It's not Western market economics. Because I hate saying that, because it's like people have such a conniption fit when you say that sometimes. The concept of freedom. You create something that's cool, and you're able to do what you want with it. If you don't have that system, if we can't have a conversation like we're having, if you can't choose to listen to us or choose not to listen to us, if you can't choose to hit the thumbs up or the thumbs down button, your creative interaction is worth nothing. If you don't have the freedom to choose, your creative is worth nothing. It's the same concept behind, like, if you're a robot who's only programmed to love things, then you don't have the capacity to hate, and you don't have the capacity to hate. You will ultimately, you're not free. That's not. You don't have the ability to invent and create. You're just there to do one thing. It's a robot. It's an automata, and that's what they're risking doing with their economy. And anytime anybody risks shuttering freedom, essentially, you run the very strong risk of turning off that light, that inner brilliance that comes up with new ideas. And when that happens, well, you're going to be replaced at some point, probably violently.
Yeah.
As far as governments go, not I don't advocate violence.
Yes, of course. You're right. It's not necessarily a Western idea. It's just an idea that happens to predominate more so through the West rather than the East, but there are absolutely examples of this in the East. But going back to the sorts of things that they are going to be trying to get rid of, any game that is made within China or that is brought into China must represent a correct set of values of China's history and culture. That is, if it's discussed, and also, if the game happens to promote ideals that are inherent to Western democracy or stuff like that, they don't want that in there. They don't want any games that feature gay relationships or effeminate males. So I guess no games from Japan then. The genders of characters must be immediately identifiable. And the games that have blurred moral boundaries or opportunity to choose immoral actions won't be allowed. So, like, let's say you have a moral system in an RPG like Skyrim or Fallout.
Or
that game
Mass
can't come
Effect.
into China.
Yeah, you can't play Mass Effect with this because Renegade options are out.
Yep. And you certainly can't play the older versions of Mass Effect because they have the sexualized aspects of that too. So it all comes down to whether or not the Chinese communists love money or they want to preserve their values more. And I think at the end of the day that they're not complete idiots, and they'll probably continue to allow companies that allow things like violence in their games, because I'm not sure if they're going to go in that direction, because, we were talking about Genshin Impact. The only game that made as much money made more money than Genshin Impact in the last year was PUBG Mobile. And PUBG Mobile is huge in China. If they were to get rid of that, that's another huge part of their gross domestic product taken away from them. Are they sure they want to do that, especially when they're at a point in history where they're becoming a very a competitor to the West and the United States in particular? I'm not sure. We'll have to see. that's about it. Sai, before we round things out, did you have anything else you wanted to say on this subject?
No, that's it. We will just a note about those Konami games. If we're going to see something this year on it, I suspect we'll probably see something at the Tokyo Game Show. That's dropping sometime soonish. So yeah,
isn't that going on right now?
I do believe it's literally going on, probably right now ish.
Huh. Okay. Well, if it's happening right now, hopefully I can wake up sometime in the next couple days and find out that a Metal Gear Solid 3 remake is indeed happening. That'll be the highlight of my day, and it'll be more content for my channel, and it'll just be a good time. So it's good balance of good information and just the regular bad news that we get, but at least it wasn't depressing this time. So good episode overall. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for tuning into the Maximum News Show. Listen, if you want an audio version of the Maximum News Show so you can listen to it on your iPod or your Android whenever you're working out or doing whatever, you can get it. All you have to do is go over to my Patreon page, which is linked in the description box below. Don't worry, it's very cheap. It's only $1 Canadian a month. That's less than $1 American a month. If you just click on the link down there, you'll find all the instructions on how to get it easily. I want to thank Saib. Saib, missed you, man. It's good to be doing this again, and I look forward to playing New World with you in a few days, maybe tomorrow or something, once I'm done working on my usual video stuff. Before we conclude, Saib, do you just want to tell people where they can
find us at the Triple S League at basically, most places, literally most places. We are on Rumble, we are on BitChute, we are on, of course, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch. We're in most of those places. Find us at the Triple S League, and follow us on and join us on Discord too, because we have a big community there, and we're always looking to do more fun things. We usually do Quiplash in the morning on a Saturday morning. So hit us up if you're interested in some wordplay.
Man, I love Quiplash. I got to play that game again sometime. Last time I played that, I think was the hardest I ever laughed. Anyways, you guys can find me just on all the relevant social media websites, just at Max Starrett. I'll put links to my stuff and Saib stuff down below. Thanks, guys. And until we do this again next week, I want to remind you, as always and as per usual, stay yellow.